Hey there, we are live from the Marunouchi area of Tokyo. This is, well, I'll show you a little bit because I'm standing in front of the gates for the Imperial Palace. This is where Emperor Akihito and the Empress Michito they actually live just beyond those gates there. You can see those trees and this kind of compound, and the imperial residence is behind over there. But what's really interesting about this whole facility is that it's right in the center of one of the financial districts here in Tokyo. So you have all of these kind of high-rises. Tokyo Station is over here, and yet you have all of the new modern buildings combined with, just this beautiful sprawling imperial palace complex. And some parts of it are open up to the public. There's a beautiful jogging park over here as well. And a lot of times in the morning, I live just about a mile and a half down that way. I can come here and jog around these lovely trees here, this really immaculate park. But of course, the centerpiece of it all is the Imperial Palace. And this is where the Emperor Akihito delivered a really historic televised address to the Japanese people. He did this, he recorded it at some point over the weekend, and it was released at 3 p.m. local time on television here in Japan yesterday. All of the major networks broke into programming for special reports because this was only the second time that the emperor, and he's been emperor for more than a quarter century, this is only the second time that he's ever spoken on television. The first time was a few days after the March 11th earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear meltdown, when he went on the air to comfort the nation. Prior to that, the only other time that a Japanese emperor used mass media to speak directly to his people was August 15th, 1945, when the current emperor's father, Emperor Hirohito, went over the airwaves and announced that Japan had lost World War II, that he was no longer divine, no longer to be considered a living god, and that the country was going to accept the terms of an unconditional surrender. At that point, the emperor went from having absolute power, from being revered as somebody who was above every other person in this country, to essentially a very ceremonial position with only symbolic power, and that's how Japan has functioned for the last 70 years. So you can see these folks here in their office clothes. These are employees of the Imperial Household Agency reporting for work, and the Imperial Household Agency, which of course manages the emperor, the empress, the imperial family, the crown prince, all of these royals and their affairs. This is now managed by the parliament, by the Japanese government. Their budget is approved by lawmakers every year. It totals over $100 million when you account for the expenses of upkeep, all of the palaces and whatnot, and also the allowances for members of the royal family. But the royal family themselves don't have much control over how this money is spent. And they also, this is key here, they don't have control over things like abdication. Abdication meaning that the emperor, who went on the air yesterday talking about how he's getting older, doesn't feel that he can fully perform his duties for much longer, but yet you'll notice he never actually said that he wants to step down, because under current Japanese law, the emperor is not allowed to abdicate. He serves in the position until he dies. And if the emperor were to go on the air, as he did yesterday, and actually flat out say, I want to step down, that could be perceived as trying to use his influence to exert pressure on lawmakers to change the law, and that goes against the post-war constitution that was set up back in 1945. So what you heard yesterday was the emperor giving a very clear message to the Japanese people and lawmakers that, at age 82, he's already had to cut 100 meetings off of his annual schedule. He's had 2 surgeries for a heart condition and for cancer. He's getting worn down. He worries about whether he'll be able to fully serve his duties in the future, but yet he didn't actually point blank say that he wants lawmakers to change the law and allow him to abdicate. But of course, that's now the conversation that's happening nationally here in Japan, with 85 to 90% of Japanese, after watching Emperor Akihito's speech yesterday, saying that they feel he should get a break, that he should get a rest. And so now it's going to be up to lawmakers to decide. The Prime Minister, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he came out very quickly after the emperor's speech yesterday, and he said, given the understanding of the burden of being the emperor, 250 annual meetings per year, 75 trips in and out of Japan, perhaps lawmakers should take a look at Japanese law and try to figure out what options there may be to allow an aging emperor to either step down or find some other solution. But of course, this opens up a bit of a Pandora's box for Japanese lawmakers, because this could also, if they start talking about succession law, this could also reignite the debate about whether a female emperor could rise to the chrysanthemum throne, which is the world's oldest hereditary monarchy. And I'm going to answer your questions as they come in here as well. So we can talk about all this over the next few minutes here. So Renato is asking, what would happen if the emperor resigns? Who would take his position? So the crown prince, Naruhito, is the next in line for the chrysanthemum throne. He's 56 years old. He's about the age that his father, Akihito, was when he assumed the chrysanthemum throne after Emperor Hirohito died in 1989. He's already acting in some ways as a representative for his father. And I just wanted to show you kind of the line of, this was news cars yesterday, but it looks more like palace maintenance staff today that are here. But you can get kind of another look inside the palace complex from this vantage point here. And so the crown prince would take his position. He is likely the next in line to the throne. The crown prince does not have a son, and the current succession law stipulates that the emperor, the Japanese emperor, has to be a male. Although if you look over the course of the centuries, 2,600 years of the chrysanthemum throne, there have been empresses in the past, but under this current dynasty, the emperor has to be a male under the laws as established right now. But the crown prince's daughter, Princess Aiko, could she be an empress at some point? Or would the next in line after the crown prince have to be his brother's third child, who's a male? This debate could be reignited now as a result of the fact that the emperor says he wants to step down and wants he's implying that he wants to step down, and lawmakers might start looking into all of this. Teresa asks, why can't his children take over? Well, his son, the eldest son, the crown prince, can take over, but it's not so easy as the emperor just saying, okay, I'm tired, I want to abdicate, I want to step down, and now let me enjoy my retirement. Because again, as I said, Japanese law doesn't allow the aging emperor to abdicate. So even though the Pope has stepped down, there are many monarchs who have abdicated, it's not so easy for the Japanese emperor. It's going to require Parliament to change the imperial household law. But the emperor's message that he gave yesterday, talking about his age, talking about his declining health, talking about his fear that he won't be able to fully perform his duties, all of that was a very clear message to the Japanese people and to lawmakers that he is ready and has a desire to abdicate, probably in the near future. Omar asks, what are the duties of the emperor? He has a lot of duties. He is essentially considered a symbol of the unity of the people, and it's probably worded a little differently than the way I'm putting it for you right now. But pre-World War II, the emperor here in Tokyo had absolute power. So Akihito's father, Hirohito, World War II was fought in his name, and he called all of the shots. And his wealth, the imperial palace, and everything else in Japan was considered the wealth and under the control of the imperial family. And so all of that wealth and power was essentially stripped of the emperor as part of the unconditional surrender that Japan made after World War II. The occupying forces, led by the Americans, came in here and they established a constitutional monarchy where the emperor went from being a living god, revered as semi-divine, to a symbol, a figure, but not any actual tangible powers. So what does he do? He represents Japan when meeting with other leaders around the world. He takes a lot of meetings. The Imperial Household Agency says the Emperor and Empress took 250 public meetings last year, many of them in the Imperial Palace behind me. So people will come through, and if you see that the street is very empty here, but occasionally you'll see a car come by. We saw the Crown Prince and his motorcade come through here, and they go up to these gates. The security guards check them, they allow them in, and then they can meet with the Emperor and Empress. And sometimes an ambassador will brief the Emperor and Empress about a situation in another country. And each of these 250 meetings requires preparation. I've been told that they always try to do their background, their homework, to find out who they're meeting with, to try to know as much about the issue as possible. In addition to those 250 meetings, which, by the way, they've cut 100 of those meetings off of their schedule and passed them to the Crown Prince, there's also 75 trips, annual trips, in and out of Japan. And I was told when we were researching for this story that the Emperor and Empress, altogether, counting the time that he was Crown Prince, have traveled to more than 60 countries. So that's during the time that he was Emperor, and also during, beforehand as well when he was the Crown Prince. What kind of laws does Japan want to change? Well, the laws would basically change from requiring the emperor to serve until he dies to allowing the emperor to abdicate, to retire, and to either appoint a successor to become the emperor right away, or to appoint an acting regent, even though he's not incapacitated, because right now the law says the only time that the emperor could have a regent, such as the Crown Prince, would be if he's permanently incapacitated. And obviously the emperor, while he's had a couple of surgeries, he's still in fairly good health for 82 years old. He'll be 83 in December. Tell us your thoughts about the future of the Japanese royal family. It seems as if the royal family is a very important part of Japanese culture. That's why it was preserved in this way at the end of World War II. And the monarchy, especially under the current Emperor Akihito, is very popular and well respected here in Japan. The fact that the emperor has made this position much more accessible to the people in many ways. For example, he was the first Crown Prince to marry a commoner. He was the first. They were the first royal couple to raise their children on their own, which was very noteworthy to a lot of Japanese. And after the 3/11 earthquake and tsunami and nuclear meltdown, the emperor actually went to visit with the victims, and he actually got down on the floor with the victims. He kneeled down with them. Very significant and symbolic to see the Emperor of Japan actually getting down on the floor with people who had lost everything after the tsunami. It showed his compassion for his people, and people, it really touched them that the emperor would actually get down to their level. So that's why Emperor Akihito has become known as the people's emperor. It's for that reason, for that kind of behavior. Does the emperor hold any real power? As I said, it's a symbolic position, and that's why he had to be very careful when he went before the Japanese people and gave this speech yesterday. It was very carefully worded. He and his advisors probably spent many hours coming up with this statement, which was only a few minutes, because he had to figure out how to say he wants to abdicate without actually saying it. And you get a window really into Japanese culture in a way, because sometimes here in Japan, a point will be made, but it won't be made directly. You're not going to come out and actually say, this is what you want. You speak around it, and you do it for a number of different reasons. And in the emperor's case, it's legal reasons, it's reasons of decorum, but he very wisely was able to clearly make his point without actually saying it straightforward. So now, as he works in the imperial palace, it's business as usual. The question becomes, what will Japanese lawmakers do? What will the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe do? And we'll have to watch. Will the debate reignite about a woman ascending to the chrysanthemum throne? Will the Crown Prince be able to take over for his father? What would the time frame for that be? A very big story that we're watching very closely here in Tokyo. Thank you so much for being here on Facebook with us.